I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Charles Pelegrino's book is To Hell and Back, The Last Train from Hiroshima. This is the story of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the two bombings, August 6th and August 9th, 1945. From the American point of view, quickly, but then from the Japanese point of view, especially those who survived two blasts, who traveled from Hiroshima to Nagasaki to be attacked again by the plutonium bomb on the 9th. But we're still inside the survivors of the 6th, and not all of these are double survivors. Some are, however, and the phenomenon of shock cocoon explains some of their success. One double survivor is kite maker Morimoto. How does he survive, Charlie?
This is an amazing story. He was in a mansion that was fairly close to the hypocenter, and he was visiting two cousins. They were down on the ground floor. This was a multi-tiered mansion, and so the multi-layers of tiles and thick wood, it was a very old house, and bookshelves from floor to ceiling. They were all into literature and culture, and the books themselves protected them from a lot of the gamma radiation, but beyond that, it was as if the building had crumples, and the books served as part of the crumple zones as they were. The ceilings came down and the books flew off the shelves, and they were on the lower floor, completely shock cocooned, in an area where everyone, essentially no one else in that neighborhood who was either indoors or outdoors in that one city block had survived.
A detail here. Morimoto and others figure out that Nagasaki is next. How do they know that?
Well, Morimoto knew what cities had been firebombed. He was also suspicious that the city of Hiroshima had not been bombed at all, and that perhaps it had been saved as a test to see what effect some new weapon did.
Is that accurate?
Yes, and he knew another city that had not been bombed at all. Right, and he knew that Nagasaki had not been bombed.
Kokura was the primary for the 9th. Kokura was the primary. They bypassed it.
But Morimoto didn't know that. He figured Nagasaki would be next. That's where his family was, and he just wanted to make his way back to Nagasaki to die with his family.
Why I'm taken with this is if Morimoto figured it out in Hiroshima, Tokyo could have figured it out. The warlords who are running the country at this point, they've got the emperor as their hostage, had room to figure out that Nagasaki was next. They had room to know that the Americans were going to bomb again. However, did they also have room to figure out that the Americans only had one more bomb? Who figured that out?
Yes.
In Tokyo?
In Tokyo, some of the scientists, Nishina's and Sagan's group, had actually figured out how much power, how many resources would have had to go into making these atomic bombs. And he figured the Americans could maybe at the outside have made 3, that they would have probably tested one to see that it would work, and that if they had another one...
That's the Amogaroto. Right. That's Trinity test that happened in July.
Right, and it was concluded by the warlords that, well, then they've done just about the worst they can do. Truman had promised a rain of ruin, that these atomic bombs will be falling all over your country. But after Nagasaki, we had no more atomic bombs. We would have no more after August 9th until, at the earliest, early September.
A man named Kenshi, searching for his wife. He comes to soldiers wandering around in the center of the town. This is the site of my house. My name is Kenshi. Is that the one who finds his wife's bones?
Right. He had been married for 10 days, and it's just his story, the gentleness with which he treated just the site of the house. Once he identified this rectangular depression in the ground and stone tiles that had been from a wall around the garden, and feared that she had died at home almost right under the bomb. And he was outside the worst parts of the blast zone, was opposite of where the black rain had fallen, and would not have received any radiation dose at all had he not gone toward the center of the city looking for his wife. And he spent 2 days there sleeping on that ground. He had a little water. He had some biscuits with him. Whenever he ate, he made an offering to her. it's just one of the most heartbreaking stories when you get into
he's a
all
double
the
survivor
details of it.
because
Right.
his wife's from Nagasaki, and he's going to take the train to his wife. Is it his family or his wife's family?
To his wife's
To
family.
his wife's family in Nagasaki, and we will come back to him when Nagasaki is bombed. Now, the burning train. This is told by the prefect, Nishioka. Is he on the train?
Right.
No,
he was on another train.
Another train, and he saw the burning train.
He was heading into
The
Hiroshima.
burning train is inbound to Hiroshima. When
Actually, it's outbound
I
from
see.
Hiroshima
And
when the
it's-
flash...
when the
hits
flash
it.
comes, it sets the train on fire, and the dead man switch doesn't work.
Right. There was a conductor that people saw hanging out of one of the windows, still alive. Parts of the cars, the tops of the cars, parts of them were missing. Some of the cars were burning, and the train was speeding up to higher and higher speed.
Were there people inside?
There were some. There were some people standing where windows had been. The windows were gone. There were some people standing, looking out. It was described like scarecrows. Train kept accelerating and eventually hit a truck and became this huge train wreck that a person we mentioned before, Nancy Cantwell, was one of the first on
near
site.
the hospital. Did the
All these people's lives seem to interconnect.
Well, everybody who survived, it's a small group. Yeah. Does the prefect know that Nagasaki is next? Does he prepare for it?
He has a very good sense that it's going to come to Nagasaki. He goes to Nagasaki to report. He prepares by when he goes to his wife after he takes care of some responsibilities that he has to take care of and warning people of exactly what this bomb does. He went to his wife, loaded some fuel he had been hoarding into a car, and told her, "Don't take anything with you. Just head up to this national park in the north. Don't look back. Get out of here."
We go to an image that is described as the Iris girl, the crazy Iris. A survivor comes across a body, a corpse, floating underwater. I get the picture. She was floating underwater, and an iris is in bloom above her.
Right. There was a poet who was living in the town, and he saw, after the town next door, he was in a suburb, a hamlet, at a friend's house, and this is the day after the bombing of Hiroshima. There was a town nearby that was firebombed.
August 7th.
Right, and there's a town that was firebombed. This girl, she was 20 years old. She had survived Hiroshima, come home to this town, survived this other firebombing, and just driven by who knows what, she took off her shoes and in a nightgown went into this pond and apparently let out all the air that was in her and took in a breath of water, and was described at one point by the poet as beneath the water in a nightgown like a goldfish, and this iris flower blooming and reaching down toward the water out of season but as if to touch her cheek. And he said the flower too had gone crazy. Nature was being driven crazy by what happened, and it was a crazy flower for a crazy time.
The book is To Hell and Back. Charles Pelegrino is the author. The Last Train from Hiroshima. When we come back, it's August 7th, and the Japanese are figuring out what's happened. What do they do about it? I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.